The alarm screamed through the halls of Nexus 7 for the third time that week. Taman pressed himself against the corridor wall as security officers ran past him, their boots hammering against the metal floor. He could hear the sounds coming from Section D, crashing, breaking glass, and that terrible, wild screaming that made his chest feel tight. She had been on the station for 12 days now. 12 days of chaos. Taman had seen the reports. Everyone on Nexus 7 had seen them. The alien woman from Velnara, the last survivor they could find before her world started burning under solar flares. She was supposed to be a rescue, a mercy. Instead, she was a nightmare that the station's best minds couldn't solve. He walked carefully toward the observation window of her holding area. Other crew members hurried away from it, but Taman needed to see. He always needed to see. Through the reinforced glass, he watched her. Ira Seth, they called her, a name the scientists gave her because they couldn't pronounce what she screamed in her own language. She was tall, taller than most humans, with violet skin that seemed to shimmer under the station lights. Her hair was white and wild, falling past her shoulders in tangled waves. But it was her eyes that caught him. They were large and golden, with vertical pupils like a cat. Right now, those eyes were full of rage and terror. She crouched in the corner of the room, her lips pulled back to show sharp teeth. Her hands ended in retractable claws that were currently extended, scraping marks into the wall behind her. The room was destroyed. The bed was flipped. The table was in pieces. Food trays were scattered everywhere, the contents rotting because she refused to eat what they gave her. "Stubborn creature," someone muttered beside him. Taman glanced over to see Dr. Heejin, the station's alien psychologist. She looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes. "We've tried everything. Diplomats, xenobiologists, even a telepath from the Mindari species. Nothing works. She attacks anyone who enters." "Maybe she's just scared," Taman said quietly. Dr. Heejin shook her head. "She's a primitive being from a warrior culture. Fear manifests as aggression in her species. We need to establish dominance, show her we're not a threat through strength." Taman didn't respond. He just watched Ira Seth pace back and forth like a caged animal. But she wasn't an animal. He could see intelligence in those eyes. Pain, loss, the kind of grief that made people do desperate things. He had felt that way once, after the colony transport accident that killed his parents. Back then, he had been angry too. He had pushed everyone away, broken things, screamed at counselors who tried to help. They had called him difficult and traumatized, and other words that felt like labels instead of understanding. Looking at Ira Seth now, he didn't see a wild beast. He saw someone who had lost everything. "We're considering sedation," Dr. Heijin continued. "Commander Dohyun thinks we might need to keep her unconscious until we figure out what to do with her. The Galactic Council is pressuring us for answers, and the Korthan Imperium has been asking questions about her. They're interested in her species for some reason." Taman frowned. "You mean you just put her to sleep? For how long?" "However long it takes," Dr. Heijin sighed. "It's not ideal, but she's a danger to herself and others. Yesterday, she injured 2 security officers. One of them needed 12 stitches." Inside the room, Ira Seth suddenly stopped pacing. She tilted her head, and for a moment, her eyes locked with Taman's through the glass. He didn't look away. He didn't flinch. He just looked back at her, keeping his face calm and neutral. Something shifted in her expression. The rage faded slightly, replaced by confusion. She took a step toward the window, then stopped. Her claws slowly retracted into her fingertips. "Interesting," Dr. Heijin murmured. "That's the first time she's shown curiosity instead of aggression toward an observer." Taman barely heard her. He was too focused on Ira Seth. Slowly, carefully, he raised one hand and placed it flat against the glass. Not reaching for her, not threatening, just there. Ira Seth stared at his hand, her head tilted further, like a bird studying something strange. Then, just as slowly, she approached the window. She didn't touch the glass. She stopped about 2 feet away, watching him with those intense golden eyes. They stayed like that for a long moment. Two beings, separated by reinforced glass and a universe of differences, just looking at each other. Then alarms blared again, and Iriseth jerked back, snarling. The moment was broken. She retreated to her corner, and the wild fear returned to her eyes. Dr. Heijin checked her datapad. Another attempted breach of the medical sector. She tried to break through the vent system again. She shook her head and walked away, already talking into her communication device about increasing security measures. Taman stayed at the window a little longer. He watched Iriseth curl up in her corner, making herself as small as possible. She wrapped her arms around her knees, and he could see her shoulders shaking. Was she crying? Could her species cry? He made a decision then. Maybe it was stupid, maybe it wouldn't work, but he had to try. Taman was a maintenance engineer. Nobody important, nobody with fancy degrees or impressive titles. He fixed broken things. Pipes, electrical systems, life support panels. The scientists and officers barely noticed him when he worked in their labs and offices. Maybe that was exactly what Iriseth needed. Someone who wouldn't try to study her or fix her or establish dominance. Someone who would just be there. The next morning, Taman requested a shift change. He wanted to work in and around Section D, near the holding areas. His supervisor approved it without question. Maintenance workers were needed everywhere, and Section D had plenty of broken things after Iriseth's rampages. He started with a wall panel 3 doors down from her room. It was damaged during one of her escape attempts. Taman brought his tools and settled on the floor, beginning the repair work. He didn't look at her observation window. He didn't announce himself. He just worked, humming an old song his grandmother used to sing. From inside her room, Iriseth heard the humming. She heard the soft sounds of tools and work. She crept to the door, peering through the small window there. She saw a human, small compared to the others, sitting on the floor with his back to her door, completely unguarded. Not watching her, not preparing weapons, just fixing something broken while making soft sounds. Iriseth didn't understand it, but for the first time since waking on this metal prison, she didn't feel the need to attack. She just watched him work and listened to his humming and felt something shift in her chest. Something that felt almost like hope. 5 days passed. Taman came to Section D every shift, always, with some task to complete. Fixing a broken vent, replacing a light panel, adjusting the temperature controls. The work was real, needed, but he chose jobs that kept him near her holding area. He never looked directly at Iriseth, never approached her door. He simply existed in her space, quiet and unthreatening. While he worked, he hummed songs or whispered to himself about what he was doing. This wire goes here, that circuit connects there. Easy fix. Sometimes he ate his lunch in the corridor, sitting against the wall with his back to her window. He never turned to see if she was watching, but he could feel her eyes on him. Inside her room, Iriseth was confused. This small human came every day but never challenged her, never showed teeth or made loud noises, never tried to force his way inside. He just was there, like a tree or a rock, part of the landscape. On the 3rd day, she noticed he left something, a piece of fruit, red and round, placed carefully on the floor near her door's food slot, not pushed inside, not offered with expectation, just left there like a gift to the forest spirits her people used to honor. She ignored it for hours. It could be poison, it could be a trick, but hunger eventually won. She crept forward, snatched it quickly, and retreated to her corner. The fruit was sweet and crisp, better than the tasteless paste they usually sent through the food slot. The next day, there was another gift, a blanket, folded neatly. This one smelled different from the rough sheets in her room. It smelled like growing things, like the greenhouse section she had caught sense of through the ventilation system. It smelled like outside. Iriseth clutched the blanket to her chest, and, for the first time since arriving on this station, she felt a tiny crack in the wall of panic that surrounded her heart. Dr. Hagen noticed the change during her daily observation. Her stress markers are decreasing, she told Commander Do-hyun during their morning briefing. Heart rate is lower. She's eating some of the food we provide now. Still aggressive toward anyone who enters, but the destructive behavior has reduced. Good, Commander Do-hyun said, reviewing reports on his datapad. The Galactic Council is breathing down my neck about her status, and the Korthan Imperium keeps sending inquiries about her welfare. They're too interested in her for my comfort. The Korthans are always interested in strong species, Dr. Hagen replied. Velnarans have dense muscle structure and enhanced reflexes, perfect for their military programs. She's not merchandise, Do-hyun said firmly. She's a refugee under our protection, but we need her stable enough to communicate. Can she speak yet? Dr. Hagen hesitated. She understands more than we initially thought. I've been monitoring her reactions to our language. She's learning, but she won't speak. Trauma-induced selective mutism, most likely. What Dr. Hagen didn't mention was that she had also noticed something else. The cleaning crew reported that Iriseth's room was now tidy. The alien woman had started organizing her space, stacking the broken furniture pieces in neat piles, arranging the food containers by size. These were signs of a mind regaining control, seeking order in chaos. And it had all started when that maintenance worker, Taemin, began his quiet routine in her corridor. On the 7th day, Taemin brought a small potted plant. It was nothing special, just a hardy fern from the greenhouse that could survive in low light. He placed it near her door with the usual care, not looking at her window, not waiting for acknowledgement, but this time he spoke. His voice was soft, barely above a whisper. My grandmother kept plants, he said to the air, to himself, to her. She said they were good listeners. They didn't judge you. They just grew quiet and patient. When I was angry about my parents, she gave me a plant to take care of, something living that needed me. He was quiet for a moment, adjusting the plant's position slightly. I killed it at first, forgot to water it, but she gave me another one, said everyone deserves a second chance to care for something. He stood up, gathering his tools. Anyway, I thought you might like something green to look at. This place is too gray. Then he left, his footsteps echoing down the corridor. Inside her room, Iriseth stared at the plant. She approached the door slowly, crouching down to look at it through the gap beneath. It was small and fragile, soft leaves, delicate stems. Not a weapon, not a threat, just a living thing alone in a metal world. She reached her fingers under the door, claws carefully retracted, and gently pulled the pot inside. She held it in her lap, touching the leaves with a tenderness that would have shocked anyone who had seen her violent rages. In her language, she whispered a word, Kesoma, little life. That night, when the station dimmed for the sleep cycle, Taemin fell asleep in the corridor. He hadn't meant to. He'd worked a double shift covering for a sick colleague, and exhaustion had simply taken him. He slumped against the wall near her section, his tool bag beside him, head tilted awkwardly. He woke to alarms blaring. Red emergency lights flashed. His communication device was buzzing with urgent messages. A maintenance drone had malfunctioned, its welding arm sparking dangerously as it moved through the corridor on its programmed route. Taemin scrambled to his feet, still foggy with sleep. The drone was heading straight for him, its sensors clearly damaged, unable to detect the obstacle in its path. He fumbled for the emergency shutoff on his pad, but his tired fingers couldn't find the right command fast enough. Then he heard it. A roar that shook the walls, the sound of metal being torn. Iriseth had ripped the door panel apart from the inside. She burst into the corridor, a blur of violet and white, and positioned herself between Taemin and the malfunctioning drone. When the sparking welding arm swung toward them, she batted it away with one clawed hand, then grabbed the drone with both arms and hurled it down the corridor. It crashed against the far wall and powered down, smoking slightly. Security teams arrived within seconds, weapons drawn. They saw Iriseth standing in the open corridor, breathing hard, claws extended and bloody from tearing through the door panel. And they saw Taemin behind her, unharmed, staring at her with wide eyes. "Don't shoot," Taemin shouted, finding his voice. He stepped forward, moving slowly around Iriseth to put himself between her and the security weapons. "She was protecting me. The drone malfunctioned. She saved my life." Iriseth watched him step in front of her. This small, soft human, shielding her from the others with his fragile body, making himself a barrier. Something her people understood. Protection offered freely, a debt acknowledged. She lowered her claws, retracted them slowly. Then she did something that made the security team hesitate. She placed one hand on Taemin's shoulder, not grabbing, not threatening, just touching, a connection. And she spoke her first words in their language. The sounds rough and broken, but clear. "This one, friend?" The corridor went silent, except for the buzz of emergency lights and the distant hum of station systems. Taemin looked back at her over his shoulder. He saw her golden eyes, still wary, still frightened, but no longer completely wild. He saw intelligence there, choice, trust offered like a fragile flame in a dark room. He reached up slowly and placed his hand over hers on his shoulder. "Friend," he agreed softly. Dr. Hajian arrived moments later, datapad in hand, recording everything. She stared at the scene before her, at the alien woman everyone had called unmanageable, standing calmly beside the maintenance worker nobody had paid attention to. "Impossible," she breathed. But it wasn't impossible. It was simply patient. And Taemin had all the patience in the world. After the incident with the drone, everything changed. Commander Do-hyun made an official decision that surprised everyone on the station. Taemin would be Iriseth's primary contact person, not Dr. Hajian with her psychology degrees, not the diplomatic specialists. A maintenance engineer. "You've achieved what our best couldn't," Do-hyun had told Taemin in his office. "She trusts you. That's worth more than any protocol manual." Taemin had accepted, though he felt completely unprepared. What did he know about alien psychology or cultural diplomacy? He fixed pipes and electrical systems, but he couldn't say no. Not when he remembered Iriseth's hand on his shoulder and that one word she had spoken, friend. The first thing Taemin did was research. He spent hours in the station's database, reading everything available about Velnara. The information was limited since the planet had been classified as primitive and mostly left alone by the Galactic Council. But what he found was fascinating. Velnarans were a matriarchal society. Females were larger and stronger, serving as hunters and protectors. They communicated not just through words, but through posture, scent, and subtle movements. They valued silence as much as speech. Their culture was built on earned respect, not demanded obedience. They were ambush predators originally, but had evolved into a gathering society that hunted only when necessary. They believed in balance, in taking only what was needed, in honoring every life taken. Their religion spoke of threads, each living being a thread in a great weaving that connected everything. When someone lost their family group, they became thread lost, wandering until they found a new weaving to join. It was considered one of the worst fates to be alone without a pattern to belong to. Taemin understood then. Iriseth wasn't just traumatized by her rescue, she was thread lost. Everyone and everything she knew was gone. She was completely, utterly alone. Armed with this knowledge, Taemin changed how he interacted with her. He requested they move her to a larger room with a window that showed the greenhouse section. He asked the kitchen to prepare foods that matched the Velneron diet as closely as possible, vegetables and fruits, with protein from nuts and seeds. And he started sitting on the floor when he visited her, making himself lower, smaller, less threatening. In Velneron culture, sitting lower than someone was a sign of respect, an acknowledgement that you weren't challenging them. Iriseth noticed. Of course she noticed. Her golden eyes tracked every change, every adjustment he made. She watched him sit on the floor and tilt his head slightly to the side, exposing his neck, another Velneron gesture of non-aggression. He was trying to speak her language, not with words, but with his body. And she appreciated it in ways she couldn't express. Slowly, Iriseth began to respond. When Taman visited, she would sit across from him, still keeping distance, but no longer hiding in corners. When he spoke to her in his soft voice, telling her about his day, or reading information about Earth customs, she would tilt her head and listen. Doctor. Hagen observed these sessions from outside the room, taking notes. You're doing remarkably well, she told Taman after one particularly long visit. She's engaged, attentive, her body language shows curiosity rather than fear. She's smart, Taman said simply. She's been learning our language this whole time, just listening. She understands more than she lets on. Can you get her to speak more? We need to establish communication for the council reports. Taman frowned. I'm not going to push her. She'll talk when she's ready. Dr. Hagen sighed but didn't argue. Results spoke louder than methods, and Taman was getting results. One afternoon, Taman brought something new. A data pad with images of Velnara taken before the solar flares. Forests, mountains, rivers. Pictures of her world when it was whole. He wasn't sure if this was a good idea. It might cause her pain. But she deserved to see her home, to remember it as something beautiful, rather than just the burning planet she'd been rescued from. He showed her the pad carefully, ready to take it away if she became upset. Iriseth stared at the images. Her hand reached out, claws retracted, and touched the screen gently. She made a sound in her throat, something between a hum and a growl, that Taman's research told him was Velneron for grief song. Then she looked at him, and she spoke, more words than before, still broken and rough, but clear. Home, lost, gone. She touched her chest. Iriseth, last thread, alone. Taman felt his throat tighten. He set the pad down and, moving very slowly, placed his hand near hers on the floor between them. Not touching, but close, offering. Not alone, he said quietly. I'm here. Others here. You can have new threads. Different pattern, but still a weaving. She stared at his hand for a long moment. Then, carefully, she extended one finger and touched his hand. Just the tip of one finger, barely any contact at all. But it was everything. From that day, progress accelerated. Iriseth began eating regularly. She started speaking more, asking questions in halting standard galactic. What is this? Why humans do this? What means this word? Taman answered every question patiently. He brought her books and showed her videos. He taught her about different species in the galaxy, about Earth and its cultures. He told her about his own life, his losses, his work on the station, and Iriseth began to teach him in return. She showed him Velneron hand signs, the gestures her people used for hunting and communication. She taught him words in her language. She demonstrated combat movements, fluid and deadly, then showed him how those same movements became a meditation practice, a way to find calm in chaos. One evening, Taman made a mistake. He yawned widely during their session, exhausted from another double shift. In Velneran culture, showing all your teeth was an aggressive gesture. Iriseth tensed immediately, a growl rising in her throat. Sorry, Taman said quickly, covering his mouth. Not threat. Humans yawn when tired. It's not aggression, I promise. She stopped growling but watched him suspiciously. He demonstrated again, covering his mouth this time, then explained, "See? Just tired. It's involuntary. We can't control it." Iriseth tilted her head, processing this. Then, to his surprise, she made a coughing sound. It took him a moment to realize she was laughing, or trying to. Her shoulders shook slightly. "Humans. Strange," she said, amusement in her voice. "Show teeth for tired. Show teeth for happy. Show teeth for angry. How anyone know difference?" Taman couldn't help it. He laughed too. "You're right. We are confusing." It was the first time they had shared a light moment, something beyond survival and trauma. It felt like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. But not everyone on the station was happy about the progress. Commander Do-hyun received another message from the Korthan Imperium, more insistent this time. They wanted to send representatives to assess Iriseth's condition and discuss her future. And on the other side of space, Velnara's solar activity was shifting again. Scientists monitoring the planet detected signs that another massive flare was building, one that might sterilize the surface completely. Time was running out, though neither Taman nor Iriseth knew it yet. They continued their sessions, building trust strand by strand, weaving a new pattern together. One night, Taman fell asleep in the chair in her room. He hadn't meant to. He'd been reading to her about Earth's seasons, his voice soft and steady, and exhaustion had simply claimed him mid-sentence. He woke hours later to find a blanket draped over him, the soft one he'd given Iriseth weeks ago. She had covered him while he slept. She was sitting across the room, watching over him, keeping guard. When their eyes met, she didn't look away. She placed her hand over her heart, then extended it toward him, palm up. A Velnaran gesture he'd learned. "You carry my trust?" Taman placed his hand over his own heart and returned the gesture. Something had shifted between them. No longer just human and alien. No longer just traumatized survivor and patient helper. Something deeper. Something that the galaxy was about to test in ways neither of them could imagine. The alarms came in the middle of the night cycle. Not the usual maintenance warnings or drill signals. These were deep, urgent blares that meant only one thing. The station was under threat. Taman jolted awake in his quarters, his heart hammering. His communication device exploded with messages. Emergency protocols, battle stations, unauthorized ships in orbit. The Korthan Imperium had come for Iriseth. He ran to Section D, his tool bag forgotten in his quarters. Other crew members rushed past him, heading to their emergency positions. Security teams jogged by with weapons ready. The station's defensive shields hummed to life, creating a vibration he could feel through the floor. When he reached Iriseth's area, he found chaos. The corridor was damaged, panels hanging loose, lights flickering. Her door had been blown open. Probably during the initial alert, when security had tried to move her to a safer location. But Iriseth was gone. Doctor Hagen was there, shouting orders to security teams. "Find her. She's somewhere in the ventilation system. We need her secured before the Korthans demand a boarding inspection." "What do they want?" Taman asked, breathless. Hagen turned to him, her face pale with stress. "They're claiming we're holding her illegally. They're demanding we hand her over for proper evaluation by their xenobiologists. But we know what that means. They want to study her, use her genetics for their military breeding programs." Taman felt cold. "We can't let them take her. We won't." Commander Do-hyun is stalling them, citing Galactic Council protocols. "But if they insist on a boarding inspection and we can't produce her..." Hagen didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. "Let me find her," Taman said. "She trusts me. If security teams corner her, she'll fight, and someone will get hurt." Hagen hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, but wear a tracker. And Taman, be careful. She's frightened. And frightened Velnarans are incredibly dangerous." Taman took the small tracker device and clipped it to his belt. He didn't tell Hagen that he was frightened too. Not of Iriseth, but for her. He knew where she would go. During their sessions, she had mentioned the greenhouse dome. She loved the view of growing things, the way it reminded her of home. When the station had gone into lockdown, she would have run to the one place that felt safe. He made his way through maintenance tunnels, following routes he knew well from his work. Other crew members used the main corridors, but Taman knew the hidden paths, the shortcuts maintenance workers used. The greenhouse dome was in the science section, a large transparent bubble that allowed researchers to grow plants from different worlds. At night, the lights dimmed to simulate natural cycles, making it a peaceful sanctuary of shadows and soft rustling leaves. Taman entered quietly. The air here was humid and rich, with the smell of soil and growing things. He could hear water trickling from the irrigation system, and he could hear breathing, fast and shallow, coming from somewhere among the tall plants. "Ira Seth," he called softly. "It's Taman. I'm alone. I'm not going to hurt you." Silence, then movement in the shadows. "Go away." Her voice rough with stress. "They come for Ira Seth. They want to take, to use, to hurt." "I know," Taman said, moving slowly through the plants toward her voice. "But we're not going to let them. Commander Do-hun is protecting you. The whole station is protecting you." "Why?" The question came out like a challenge. "Ira Seth, nothing. Just specimen. Just strange creature from dying world." Taman found her in a junction near the dome's viewing port. She was crouched behind a cluster of tall ferns, making herself small. Her arm was bleeding from a cut, probably from crawling through damaged ventilation shafts. Her eyes were wild again, full of the fear he'd first seen weeks ago. But there was something else in those eyes now. Pain. The pain of someone who'd started to hope and was watching that hope crumble. He didn't approach any closer. He simply sat down on the floor, cross-legged, making himself low and unthreatening. He turned slightly sideways, not facing her directly. "You're not nothing," he said quietly. "You're Ira Seth. You're the last thread of your people. You're someone who saved my life when you didn't have to. You're someone who laughs at how confusing humans are. You're someone who takes care of plants even when everything else is falling apart." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "You asked me once what friend means in human culture. I told you it means someone you choose to care about, someone whose happiness matters to you, someone you protect." He looked at her then, meeting those golden eyes directly. "You're my friend, Ira Seth, and I protect my friends." A shudder ran through her body. Taman cannot protect small, weak, no claws, no teeth, humans fragile like flower stems. "Maybe," Taman agreed, "but humans are stubborn, and we're really, really good at figuring things out. We might not have claws, but we have laws. We have treaties. We have words that can be weapons if used right." He stood up slowly, still keeping his distance. "But I need your help. The Korthans are claiming you're being held against your will. They're saying you can't speak for yourself, that you're not capable of choice." He extended his hand toward her, palm up, a gesture of offering. "Come back with me. Show them they're wrong. Show them that you can choose. Show them that you choose us. Choose to stay here. Choose your own path." Ira Seth stared at his hand. Such a small hand, no claws, soft skin that would tear so easily. But that hand had offered her food when she was starving, had brought her comfort when she was lost, had never once struck her in anger. She thought of her people, her world. The threads of her old life were burned away, scattered like ash. But here, in this metal place, floating in the dark, she had found something unexpected. A new thread, fragile, strange, but real. She stood up, unfolding her tall body from its crouch. She was nearly 2 feet taller than Taman, could break him with one hand if she wanted. But she didn't want to. She wanted to be part of a pattern again. Ira Seth stepped forward and took his hand. Not gently, her grip was still too strong, but carefully, trying, "Choose," she said, the word heavy with meaning. Iriseth, choose Taman. Choose Nexus 7. Choose New Weaving. Relief flooded through Taman. He squeezed her hand back. Then, let's go tell them that. They walked back through the station together. Iriseth could have run. She could have torn away from his grip and disappeared into the ventilation system again. But she didn't. She stayed beside him, her hand in his, trusting that this human would keep his word about protection. When they reached the command center, Commander Do-hyun was in a tense video conference with a Korthan commander. The Korthans were large, reptilian beings with heavy scales and cold eyes. The commander on the screen was hissing demands in a language that the translator struggled to keep up with. Your illegal detention of a protected species. Galactic Council will hear of this. She's not detained, Do-hyun said firmly. She's here by choice. She's a refugee under our care. Prove it, the Korthan commander sneered. Produce this creature. Let us assess her mental capacity. No need for that, Taman said, entering the command center with Iriseth beside him. Every head in the room turned to stare. Iriseth looked at the screen, at the Korthan commander with his sneering face. She looked at the room full of humans, some of whom she knew, some who were strangers. She felt fear trying to climb up her throat. These were powerful beings making decisions about her fate. But then she felt Taman's hand tighten slightly on hers, not pulling her back, not holding her prisoner, just reminding her, you're not alone. She stepped forward to face the screen. When she spoke, her voice was rough but clear, each word carefully chosen. Iriseth, speak for self. No one owns Iriseth. No one decides for Iriseth. She placed her free hand over her heart. This one, choose to stay. This one, choose humans. This one, say no to Korthans. The command center went completely silent. On the screen, the Korthan commander's eyes narrowed with anger. But Iriseth wasn't finished. She looked directly at him, and she bared her teeth slightly, a Velnaran gesture of challenge. You want Iriseth? You come through these humans first. You break their protection. But know this, Iriseth not afraid to fight, not afraid to die, but you will bleed trying to take. Taman couldn't help the small smile that touched his lips. There was the wild woman everyone had feared. But now, that wildness had purpose, had direction. She wasn't fighting out of panic. She was fighting for choice. Commander Do-hyun stepped forward, his own expression stern. You heard her. She's made her decision, and we will honor it under Galactic Council law. If you attempt to board this station or remove her by force, it will be an act of war. The Korthan commander glared at them all, then ended the transmission with a harsh gesture. The room erupted in relieved chatter. Officers congratulated each other. Dr. Hagen was already recording notes about the confrontation. But Taman just looked at Iriseth, who was still holding his hand, her body shaking slightly with leftover adrenaline. You did it, he said softly. You saved yourself. She looked down at him, and for the first time, he saw her smile. It was small and unpracticed, but real. We did it, she corrected. Together. The victory against the Korthans should have brought peace, but it only brought complications. The Galactic Council demanded a formal evaluation of Iriseth's status. They wanted to ensure she wasn't being coerced, that her declaration was genuine. 3 different species sent diplomatic representatives to Nexus 7 to observe and report. Commander Do-hyun called Taman to his office early one morning. The commander looked tired, with lines of stress around his eyes. The council observers arrive tomorrow. They'll interview Iriseth, evaluate her living conditions, assess her mental state. This needs to go perfectly. She'll be fine, Taman said, though his stomach was tight with worry. She can speak for herself. Can she? Do-hyun leaned back in his chair. She still has violent episodes. She destroyed 3 security drones last week during a nightmare. She refuses to interact with anyone except you and a handful of other crew members. The observers might see that as evidence she's not mentally stable enough to make her own decisions. Taemin frowned. She's healing from trauma. That takes time. It doesn't mean she's not capable of choice. I agree with you, but we need to prove it to them. Do-hyun pulled up files on his screen. One of the observers is Ambassador Jiwoo from the United Earth Colonies. She's fair-minded, but she's also thorough. She'll ask hard questions. Then we'll answer them honestly, Taemin said. Iriseth deserves that. That evening, Taemin sat with Iriseth in her room. It was no longer the destroyed cell she'd first occupied. Over the weeks, she had transformed it into a space that felt more like a home. Plants lined the windowsill. She'd arranged cushions on the floor in patterns that mimicked Velnaron's sleeping nests. She'd even decorated one wall with drawings, crude sketches of her home world that she'd made using art supplies Taemin had brought. Tomorrow, people come, Taemin explained. Important people from the council. They want to talk to you. Make sure you're happy here. Make sure no one is forcing you to stay. Iriseth's ears flattened slightly, a sign of anxiety. More questions. Always questions. I know. I'm sorry. Taemin sat on the floor beside her, their usual position. But this is important. If they believe you're here by choice, the Korthans can't touch you. No one can. You'll be officially recognized as a free being, with full rights. She was quiet for a moment, her clawed fingers tracing the pattern on the cushion beneath her. Taemin will be there? If you want me there, yes. Though they might want to talk to you alone for part of it. Her hand reached out and grabbed his sleeve, the fabric bunching in her grip. No, Taemin stays. Iriseth speak better when friend is there. He placed his hand over hers. Okay, I'll stay as long as they let me. The next day, the observers arrived. Ambassador Jiwoo was a middle-aged human woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. With her came a Mindari telepath named Vesitrol, whose translucent skin glowed faintly with bioluminescence, and a Drakon judge named Quartz, who looked like a massive bipedal lizard with ceremonial markings on his scales. They gathered in a conference room that had been modified for Iriseth's comfort. The lighting was softer. Plants had been brought in. Taemin sat beside her, close enough that she could reach him if needed. Ambassador Jiwoo began gently. Iriseth, thank you for meeting with us. We're here to ensure your well-being and to understand your situation. Can you tell us, in your own words, how you came to be on this station? Iriseth took a breath. Her standard Galactic was better now, though still accented and sometimes grammatically strange. My world burned. Sun became angry, threw fire at sky. My people died. I found in forest, alone. Humans take me. I wake up here. And when you first woke up, how did they treat you? Iriseth's expression darkened. Like animal, cage me, stare at me, try to touch, to take blood, to study. I was scared. I fight. I hurt people because I not understand. I thought they want to hurt Iriseth, but your feelings changed? Vesitrel, the telepath, asked softly. What caused this change? Iriseth looked at Taemin. This one. He not try to touch, not try to force. He just be there. Bring food, bring comfort, bring patience. She struggled for words. He treat Iriseth like person. Not specimen, not weapon, person. Judge Quartz made a rumbling sound in his chest. The human Taemin is a maintenance worker, yes? Not a trained xenopsychologist or cultural specialist. Why did the station assign him to your care? They didn't assign me, Taemin answered before Iriseth could. I chose to help, and she chose to let me. Chose, Ambassador Jiwoo repeated, making a note. That word keeps appearing. Iriseth, do you understand what it means to have choice? To have freedom? Iriseth's ears pricked forward. Yes, choice is power to say yes or no. Power to walk this path or that path. Humans give Iriseth choice. Stay or go. Eat or not eat. Talk or not talk. Fight or not fight. And if we said you could leave this station right now, go anywhere in the galaxy, what would you choose? The room went silent. Even Taman felt his heart clench at the question. He'd known it was coming, but it still hurt to hear. Iriseth stood up. She was tall, imposing, her violet skin seeming to shimmer under the lights. She looked at each observer in turn. Iriseth's world is dead. People are dead. Old life is dead. Cannot go back to ash in memory. She placed her hand over her heart, then extended it toward the observers. But here, on this metal world and sky, Iriseth find new thread, find new weaving. This human, she gestured to Taman, and others here, they show Iriseth that family is not just blood. Family is choice. They choose Iriseth, and Iriseth choose them. Ambassador Jiwoo's expression softened. So you wish to stay? Yes, but not as prisoner, not as pet, as, she searched for the word, as member, as crew, as person who belongs. Vesitral, the telepath, spoke up. I have been monitoring your emotional state throughout this interview. I sense no deception, no coercion. Your desire to remain here is genuine. The telepath paused. But I also sense deep pain, trauma that still affects you. Yes, Iriseth said simply. Pain is real. Trauma is real. But healing is also real. These humans help Iriseth heal, slowly but truly. Judge Quartz leaned forward. There are reports of violent episodes, destroyed equipment, injuries to station personnel. How do you explain these incidents? Iriseth's shoulders sagged slightly. Iriseth not proud of this. Sometimes, in sleep, Iriseth see her world burning, see her people dying, wake up and not know where she is. Fight, because inside, still running from fire. She looked down at her clawed hands. Is getting better, happens less now, but sometimes fear is stronger than knowing. And the station accepts this? The judge seemed skeptical. Taman spoke up. We do. Because we understand that healing isn't linear. You don't just decide to be better and then you're magically fine. It takes time. It takes support. Iriseth has been through more than most beings could survive. The fact that she's sitting here, talking to you, making choices, building a life, that's incredible. Ambassador Jiwoo smiled slightly. You care about her. Yes, Taman said without hesitation. She's my friend. More than that, she's family, and you don't give up on family. Iriseth reached over and took Taman's hand, a gesture that was becoming natural between them. He say, family, this is human word. But Velnarans have word too, Kamara, chosen thread, brother or sister, not by birth, but by heart. She looked at the observers with clear, steady eyes. Taman is Iriseth's Kamara, and Iriseth is his. This bond is sacred in my people's way, cannot be broken by force, only by choice. The observers looked at each other, some unspoken communication passing between them. Finally, Ambassador Jiwoo spoke. The Galactic Council requires one final test. We need to see you interact with other station members, not just Taman, but others. Can you demonstrate that you're capable of forming relationships beyond this one bond? Iriseth hesitated. This was harder. Taman was safe, familiar. Others still made her nervous, still triggered her defensive instincts. But she nodded. We'll try. They moved to the station's common area, where several crew members had been asked to gather. Dr. Hagen was there, along with Security Officer Bora, Chef Kyung-soo, and a few scientists Iriseth had seen but never spoken to. At first, it was awkward. Iriseth stood stiffly, her body language defensive. But then Chef Kyung-soo approached with a tray of food. I made this for you, he said in his gentle way. I tried to match Velnaran cuisine based on the research. It's not perfect, but I hope you'll try it. Iriseth looked at the food. It smelled like home, like the forest meals her mother used to prepare. Her eyes widened slightly. You make this? For Iriseth? Of course, you're part of our crew now. Taking care of each other is what we do. She took the tray with trembling hands and tasted the food. It wasn't exactly like home, The ingredients were different, but the care that went into it was the same. Is good, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Is very good, thank you. Officer Bora stepped forward next. I wanted to apologize. I was one of the security officers you fought when you first arrived. I was scared of you then, but I understand now. You were scared too. Seth looked at the woman, remembering the confrontation, remembering her own terror. You have scar? She said, pointing to a mark on Bora's arm. Seth did this. You did, but I don't hold it against you. I've learned a lot from watching you and Taman. About patience. About not judging based on first impressions. Bora extended her hand. I'd like to start over, if you're willing. Seth stared at the offered hand. This was hard. Harder than facing the Korthan commander. This was vulnerability. This was risking rejection, risking more pain. But she reached out and took Bora's hand. Start over, she agreed. New thread. The observers watched all of this, taking notes, recording everything. When they finally left for their deliberations, Seth was exhausted. She collapsed onto a bench, her head in her hands. Taman sat beside her. You did amazing. You were so brave. Tired, she murmured. Talking is harder than fighting sometimes. I know, but you did it. You showed them who you really are. 2 hours later, the decision came. Ambassador Jiwoo delivered it personally, with Commander Do-hyun and the other observers present. After careful evaluation, the Galactic Council observers have reached a unanimous decision. Seth of Velnara is declared a free and autonomous being with full rights under galactic law. Her choice to remain on Nexus 7 is recognized as genuine and made of her own free will. No entity may remove her from this station without her explicit consent. Relief washed through the room. Dr. Hagen smiled. Commander Do-hyun looked pleased. The crew members who had gathered cheered. But Seth just looked at Taman. And very slowly, for the first time since arriving on this station, she smiled a full, genuine smile. Free, she said. Seth is free. And Taman smiled back. Yes, you're free. Freedom brought new challenges. Seth had rights now, protection, recognition, but she also had nightmares. They came in the deep hours of the night cycle. When the station was quiet and her mind couldn't fight them anymore, Taman would wake to alarms from her quarters, the sound of crashing, of her screaming in her native language. The first time it happened after the council's decision, security wanted to intervene, but Taman stopped them. Let me handle it, please. He found her quarters destroyed again, bedding torn to shreds, furniture overturned, and Seth in the corner, claws out, eyes wild but not seeing. She was back on Velnara, watching her world burn, watching her people die. Seth, Taman said softly, staying near the door. You're safe. You're on Nexus 7. The fire can't reach you here. She snarled, lashing out at shadows only she could see. It's Taman, your Kamara. I'm here. Dr. Mencio, the station's trauma specialist, arrived behind him. She needs sedation. This level of distress could cause her to hurt herself or others. No, Taman said firmly. No sedation. That's not healing. That's just hiding the pain. Taman, be reasonable. But he was already moving into the room, slowly, carefully. He picked up a blanket from the floor, the soft one that smelled like the greenhouse. He moved closer to Seth, close enough to be in danger if she attacked. She swung at him, claws extended. He didn't run. He caught her wrist gently, not fighting, just holding. I'm here, he said again. You're not alone in the fire. I'm here with you. Her golden eyes focused on him, still wild but starting to recognize. Taman? Yes, it's me. You're safe. Her breathing was harsh, ragged. Saw them. Saw my mother burning. Saw the children running. Could not save them. Could not. I know. I know. He carefully wrapped the blanket around her shoulders. But you survived. They would want you to survive. She collapsed then, the fight going out of her. She sank to the floor and Taman sat with her, still holding her wrist, grounding her in the present. I'm scared too, he admitted quietly. I lost my parents in a transport crash when I was 15. Sometimes I still wake up hearing the alarms, feeling the ship shake apart. Sometimes I'm back there, helpless and alone. Iriseth's eyes focused on him more clearly. You have nightmares too? Yes. Not as often now, but they still come. Grief doesn't follow a schedule. Trauma doesn't just disappear because you want it to. She reached up with her free hand and touched his face, the back of her clawed hand against his cheek, the Velnaron gesture of trust. You understand. Not just study it in books, you feel it. I feel it, he confirmed. From that night on, things changed. When Iriseth had nightmares, Taman stayed with her. He didn't try to stop them or fix them. He just stayed present. A living reminder that she wasn't back on Velnara, that she was somewhere safe, somewhere with people who cared. Dr. Mincio wasn't happy about it at first. This isn't standard therapeutic practice. You're not trained for this. Maybe not, Taman said, but I know what helps when you're drowning in the past. Not medication, not techniques, just someone who stays, someone who doesn't run away from your pain. Slowly, with time and patience, the nightmares became less frequent, less intense. Iriseth learned to recognize them faster, to pull herself out of the memories before they consumed her completely. And as she healed, she began to truly live on the station. Officer Bora made good on her offer of friendship. She invited Iriseth to observe security training, then asked if she would demonstrate Velnaron combat techniques. Iriseth was hesitant at first, worried about hurting someone. But Bora insisted. We can learn from you, and maybe teaching will help you too. So Iriseth began teaching. She showed the security team how Velnarans moved, how they used their whole body as a weapon, how they read an opponent's intentions through the smallest shifts in posture. But she also taught them the meditation that came after, the way her people balanced violence with peace. Fight is sometimes necessary, she explained in her improving Standard Galactic. But fight is not the goal. The goal is protect. Protect family, protect home, protect what matters. When protect is done, fight stops. Then must find peace again inside self. The security team was fascinated. They practiced the movements, the breathing exercises, and Iriseth found that teaching helped her too. It connected her to her lost culture, kept it alive through sharing. Chef Kyungsu continued to refine Velnaran dishes, asking Iriseth for feedback, learning about her people's food traditions. Tell me about harvest celebrations, he would say. What did your people eat during the cold season? Iriseth would describe the meals, the rituals, the way food was shared, and Kyungsu would try to recreate them with station ingredients. Sometimes he failed, but he always tried again. And Iriseth appreciated the effort more than the accuracy. You keep my people alive, she told him once, tears in her eyes. In these dishes, in this care, my mother's recipes live again. Kyungsu smiled gently. Then I'll keep cooking them, for as long as you're here. But the most surprising friendship came from an unexpected source, a child. Hajun was 7 years old, the son of one of the station's engineers. He was curious about everything, fearless in the way only children can be. When he saw Iriseth in the common area one day, he approached without hesitation. Are you the alien everyone talks about? He asked bluntly. Iriseth tensed. Children had always made her nervous. They were so small, so fragile. Yes, Iriseth is alien. Cool. Can you show me your claws? She extended them slowly, carefully. Sharp and deadly, they gleamed under the lights. Hajun's eyes went wide with wonder, not fear. Wow, do they hurt when they come out? No, is natural, like you bend fingers. Can you climb walls with them? Sometimes, when Wall has good grip. The boy's enthusiasm was infectious. He asked a dozen more questions, and Iriseth found herself answering patiently, even smiling at his endless curiosity. Hajun's mother watched nervously from nearby, ready to intervene, but Taemin, who had been observing, gave her a reassuring nod. She's gentle with those she trusts. And kids? Kids don't carry the same fear adults do. They see her as interesting, not dangerous. From that day, Hajun became Iriseth's shadow when his mother brought him to the common areas. He would ask her to tell stories about Velnara, about her adventures, about the animals and plants of her world. Iriseth would describe the great forests, the crystal rivers, the singing caves where her people gathered for ceremonies. And in telling these stories to a child who listened with wonder, she found that her memories became less painful. They were still sad, still full of loss, but they were also beautiful, worth preserving, worth sharing. One day, during a routine hull maintenance drill, the alarms went off unexpectedly. It wasn't a real emergency, just a test, but young Hajun didn't know that. He had been playing in a restricted section, somewhere he wasn't supposed to be, and when the alarms blared, he panicked and hid. When the drill ended and his mother realized he was missing, the entire station went into search mode. Security teams spread out. Taemin joined the search immediately, his heart pounding with worry. But Iriseth found him first. Her Velnaran senses, her predatory tracking abilities that had made everyone so nervous before, now saved a life. She caught his scent, followed it through the maze of corridors, and found him wedged behind a storage container in a maintenance bay, crying and terrified. Hajun, she said softly, making herself as small as she could, is okay. Drill is over. You are safe. The boy looked up, his face streaked with tears. I'm scared. I thought the station was breaking. I thought we were all going to die. Iriseth's heart clenched. She knew that fear, that terror of the world ending around you. She reached out very gently and lifted him into her arms. He was so light, so fragile. She held him carefully against her chest. Her claws retracted completely and began to hum. A Velnaran lullaby her mother had sung to her when she was young. Shh, Iriseth has you. Nothing will hurt you. Promise. When a support beam creaked loose from the drill's vibrations, Iriseth moved instantly. She shielded Hajun with her own body, taking the impact of falling debris on her back and shoulders. She didn't even flinch. Protecting him was more important than her own pain. Security found them minutes later. Iriseth was still holding Hajun, humming the lullaby, her back bleeding from cuts, but her expression calm. The boy had stopped crying, safe in the arms of the creature everyone had once called a monster. The image spread through the station faster than any official announcement. The alien, wild woman, cradling a human child, protecting him with her own body, offering comfort instead of violence. People's perceptions shifted completely. Iriseth wasn't just the damaged refugee, they were obligated to help. She was a person, a friend, a protector, someone who belonged among them. Dr. Hajian updated her reports with a note that made Commander Do-hyun smile. Subject has successfully integrated into station social structures, displays empathy, protective instincts, and genuine care for crew members. Recommendation: promote her from refugee status to official crew member. That evening, Iriseth sat with Taemin in her quarters, wincing as he cleaned the cuts on her back. You didn't have to shield him with your body, Taemin said, his voice tight with worry. You could have been seriously hurt. He is child, Iriseth said simply. Children must be protected. Is the way. The Velnaran way? All ways. Any species that does not protect children does not deserve to survive. Taemin finished cleaning the wounds and wrapped bandages around her shoulders. You saved his life. His mother is so grateful. She wants to thank you properly. Iriseth shook her head. No thanks needed. He is Pack now. We protect Pack. Pack? Taemin repeated, understanding dawning. You mean family? You consider us all family now? Yes. New weaving. Many threads. Different colors, different textures, but all connected, all part of pattern. She looked at him with soft eyes. Taemin is center thread, first thread, but now many others join. Bora thread, Kyungsu thread, Little Hajun thread, all making stronger, weaving together. Taemin felt his throat tighten with emotion. And you're the thread that holds us together, the one that reminds us what really matters. She tilted her head, considering this. Maybe, or maybe we hold each other, is what family does. As the night cycle deepened and the station settled into quiet, Ira Seth asked something she had never asked before. Taemin, stay tonight? Not because of nightmare, just because is nice. Not being alone? He looked at her, seeing the vulnerability in that request. The trust it took to ask for simple companionship? Of course. Where should I sit? She patted the sleeping nest beside her. Here, close, like Pax sleeps. Together, safe. So Taemin settled beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. And for the first time since her arrival on Nexus 7, Ira Seth fell asleep peacefully, with no nightmares, no fear, just the quiet comfort of knowing she was home. 6 months had passed since Ira Seth's formal recognition as a free being. 6 months of growth, healing, and slow transformation. Nexus 7 had become her home in ways she never expected. Then the message came from Velnara. The science team monitoring her planet had discovered something remarkable. Deep underground, in the cave systems her people had once used for ceremonies, survivors had been found. A small colony of Velnarans had fled there when the solar flares began, protecting themselves beneath layers of rock and stone. They were alive, struggling but alive. Commander Doyen called an emergency meeting. Ira Seth sat at the conference table, flanked by Taemin on one side and Dr. Hagen on the other. Around them were the station's senior officers and representatives from the Galactic Council. Ambassador Jiwoo, who had returned for this announcement, spoke gently. Ira Seth, we've confirmed approximately 300 survivors in the underground colonies. They're your people. The Council is prepared to offer full support for repatriation, resources to help rebuild, medical supplies, everything they need. Ira Seth sat very still, processing this information. 300. Out of millions, but 300 living threads. Her people weren't extinct. The weaving wasn't completely destroyed. You can go home, Jiwoo continued. We have ships ready to take you there whenever you wish. You'd be reunited with your own kind, help them rebuild your civilization. The Council believes a surviving member of the surface tribes would be invaluable to their recovery. Everyone at the table assumed she would want to leave. How could she not? These were her people, her culture, her blood. Of course she would return to them. But Ira Seth looked at Taemin, and her golden eyes were filled with conflict. Can I think? She asked quietly. This is a big decision. Of course, Doheen said. Take all the time you need. The meeting ended, and Ira Seth left quickly, needing space to process. Taemin followed her to the greenhouse dome, her favorite place for thinking. She stood at the viewing port, staring out at the stars, her posture tense. You should go, Taemin said, though the words felt like swallowing glass. They're your people. They need you. Yes, Ira Seth agreed. They need. And Ira Seth want to help, want to see survivors, want to share knowledge, help rebuild. She turned to face him. But this is home now. You are family. Bora, Kyungsu, Hajun, all crew. This is Ira Seth's weaving now. Leave here, leave family. Her voice cracked slightly. How choose? How pick between two families? Taemin's heart ached for her. He understood the impossible weight of that choice. Maybe you don't have to choose. Maybe you can have both. She looked at him questioningly. You could visit Velnara, help your people, share what you know. But you could come back here too. Nexus 7 could be your home base, and Velnara could be like visiting relatives. You'd be a bridge between two worlds. Hope flickered in her eyes. Is allowed? can do this? I don't see why not. You're free, remember? You make your own choices. And if your choice is to belong to both places, then that's what you do. She stepped closer to him, placing her hand over her heart, then extending it toward him. You always know what to say. Always help Seth see clear. He returned the gesture, something that had become natural between them. That's what Kamara do. Over the next week, Seth prepared for her first journey back to Velnera. The council arranged a diplomatic transport with medical supplies, building materials, and agricultural resources. They invited Seth to be the primary liaison, the connection between the underground survivors and the galactic community. She accepted, but with conditions. Taemin comes with Seth, and Bora, if she want, need family threads for strength. Commander Dohyun approved it immediately. Bora volunteered enthusiastically, curious about Velneran culture, and Taemin wouldn't have let Seth go without him for anything in the galaxy. The journey to Velnera took 3 days. Seth was quiet for most of it, her emotions too complex for words. She was returning to a world she thought she'd never see again, but it wouldn't be the world she remembered. It would be scarred, changed, diminished. When they finally entered orbit around Velnara, she pressed her hand against the viewport, staring down at her home. The once green planet was now brown and gray in many places. The forests had burned, the rivers had dried, but in some areas, life was returning. Small patches of green showed where plants were slowly reclaiming the surface. The landing party descended to the cave system where the survivors had made their shelter. The entrance was hidden in a rocky cliff face, protected from the worst of the solar radiation. As they approached, Velnerans emerged cautiously. They were thinner than Seth, worn down by months of survival in harsh conditions. Their skin had a grayish tinge from lack of proper sunlight. But they were alive. And when they saw Seth, their reactions were immediate. An older female stepped forward, her white hair braided with dried grass. She spoke in rapid Velneron, words tumbling over each other. Taemin's translator struggled to keep up, but he caught the essential meaning. A surface dweller lives. The hunting tribes survived. We thought all above died. Seth responded in her native language, her voice strong and clear in a way it never quite was in Standard Galactic. She explained what had happened, how the humans had rescued her, how she had found a new weaving among the stars. The survivors were wary of the humans at first. They had been alone for so long, traumatized by the catastrophe. But they watched how Seth interacted with Taemin and Bora, how comfortable she was with them, how she called them family. Children peeked out from behind adults, curious about the strange, soft-skinned creatures with their small teeth and weak claws. Hajun would have loved to meet them, Taemin thought with a smile. Over the next days, Seth worked tirelessly. She helped unload supplies, taught the survivors about the resources available from the Galactic Council, and most importantly, she shared hope. She was living proof that Velnerans could survive off-world, could adapt, could build new lives while honoring the old ways. You do not have to stay in caves forever, she told them during a gathering. Surface is healing. We'll take time, but we'll heal. And Galaxy is bigger than Velnara. Other worlds welcome you if you choose. Choice is what humans teach, Seth. Always have choice. An elder male, his face scarred from old hunts, spoke up. But you will stay? Help us rebuild? You are of the surface tribes. You know the old ways. We need this knowledge. Seth looked at Taemin, who nodded encouragingly. She turned back to her people. Seth will help, will visit, will teach. But Seth also has family among stars now. Will live between two worlds. Be bridge. Bring galactic knowledge here. Bring Velneron wisdom there. Some of the survivors looked disappointed. Others nodded in understanding. The elder male studied her carefully, then made a formal gesture, crossing his arms over his chest. You honor your first weaving by creating a second. This is the old way. Threadwalker, we called such people. those who walk between tribes, connecting, sharing. You honor us and honor them. Go with blessing. Something in Iriseth's chest relaxed. She hadn't realized how much she'd needed their approval, their understanding. She returned the formal gesture. Will not forget. Will not abandon. Will always be Velnaran, but also be more. Be Threadwalker. Be Bridge. They stayed on Velnara for 2 weeks. Iriseth taught survival techniques, shared knowledge of edible plants that might still exist, demonstrated hunting methods. She also learned from the cave dwellers their techniques for preserving food, for filtering water, for maintaining health in difficult conditions. Bora fascinated the young Velnaran warriors who wanted to learn about human combat. She taught them, and they taught her in return. By the end of the visit, she had a group of admirers who respected her strength despite her lack of claws. Taman worked with the survivors on technical problems, helping them understand the equipment the council had provided. He found that his maintenance skills translated well, that problem solving was universal, regardless of species. But what struck him most was watching Iriseth with her people. She was different here, more confident in some ways, speaking her native language with a fluency she'd never have in Standard Galactic. But she also seemed to stand apart, changed by her time among humans in ways that made her not quite fit the old patterns anymore. She was truly between worlds now, and that was okay. On their last night on Velnara, Iriseth took Taman to a cliff overlooking the valley where her original tribe had lived. The village was gone, burned to ash, but the land remembered, and she needed to say goodbye properly. She sang a Velnaran death song, her voice rising and falling in patterns that sounded almost like wind through trees. Taman didn't understand all the words, but he felt the emotion, the grief and love and letting go. When she finished, she sat down on the cliff edge, and Taman sat beside her. They watched the sun set over the damaged planet, painting the sky in colors of orange and purple. "Thank you," Iriseth said quietly, "for coming here, for not leaving Iriseth to do this alone." "I'll never leave you to do hard things alone," Taman replied. "That's what Kamara means." She leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. "Ready to go home now. Home to Nexus 7? Yes. Home to station. Home to crew. Home to you." She paused. "Velnara is home of memories. Nexus 7 is home of living. Both important, both real, but one is past, one is future." They returned to the station 3 days later. When they disembarked, the crew had organized a welcome back gathering. Chef Kyung-soo had prepared a feast mixing human and Velnaran dishes. Hajun ran up to hug Iriseth's leg, chattering about everything she'd missed. Dr. Haejin presented her with official documents, crew member status with full rights and responsibilities. Commander Do-hyun made a short speech. "You came to us as a refugee. You've become a valued member of our community. You're officially appointed as Cultural Liaison and Xeno Relations Specialist, if that's a role you want." Iriseth looked around at all the faces, human and otherwise, all looking at her with warmth and acceptance. Yes, want this, want to help, want to be bridge. That night, after the celebration ended, and the station settled into its quiet night cycle, Iriseth and Taman returned to her quarters. They had been expanded now, given extra space befitting her new position. She decorated them with items from Velnara, gifts from the survivors, cave paintings, woven grass mats, crystals from the singing caves. But she'd also kept all the things from her life on the station. The plants Taman had given her, drawings from Hajun, a security patch from Bora, photos of the crew, 2 lives woven together into something new. "Tired," Iriseth said, settling into her sleeping nest. "Good tired, happy tired." Taman started to move toward the chair where he usually sat during their evening talks, but Iriseth caught his hand. "Stay," she said softly. "Not in chair. Here, clothes, like when we were on ship, is nice, sleeping near family. Taman hesitated only a moment. Then he settled beside her in the nest, close enough that he could feel the warmth of her body, hear her breathing, settle into a calm rhythm. Taman? Her voice was drowsy, already halfway to sleep. Yeah? Thank you for everything. For seeing Iriseth as person when no one else could. For being patient. For being Kamara. For showing what human really means. He smiled in the darkness. What does human really mean? Means see person, not monster. Means give choice, not cage. Means love with whole heart, even when different. She was quiet for a moment. Humans not strongest in galaxy. Not smartest, not biggest. But humans might be kindest. And kind is strongest thing of all. Taman felt tears prick his eyes. You taught me things too. About patience, about courage, about not giving up on people who are hurting. Then we teach each other. Is good, is how family works. She shifted slightly, getting more comfortable, and her hand found his in the darkness. Not gripping, just holding. A connection. A reminder that neither of them was alone anymore. Outside, Nexus 7 continued its eternal rotation through space, a small, bright point of life in the vast darkness. And inside, in a quiet room decorated with treasures from two worlds, two beings from different species, different cultures, different lives, slept peacefully side by side. The wild woman everyone had feared was wild no more. Or perhaps she was still wild, but wild in the way that free things are wild. Untamed, but not savage. Independent, but not alone. Strong, but not hardened. She had found what everyone seeks and few ever find. A place where she was seen, accepted, and cherished exactly as she was. She had found home. Not in a place, but in the threads that connected her to others. In the weaving they created together, different colors and textures, all binding into something stronger than any single strand. And in the arms of a human who had shown her that the greatest strength isn't in claws or teeth or the ability to fight. The greatest strength is in choosing to trust, to heal, to love, and to let yourself be loved in return.